The conclusion I've come to is you do not have a technological, and here I'm going to be rude, but it's on purpose. There's no technological solution to stupid. People are going to believe what they want to believe. You can deepfake Donald Duck on Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, and if they want to believe what they say, they're going to believe it. You can put a box around it, you can put warnings on it. It doesn't matter. So the purpose for us is A, to identify the markets where they actually need our tech to help them. B, how to combat the what's the word I'm looking for? The cognitive bias, which is the confirmation bias you have when you go online to see what you want to see. And there's a new branch of cognitive science, I believe it's called cognitive immunity, that people are talking about, where at the end of the day, like in everything cyber, you're a cybersecurity specialist, I'm not. The weakest link is the individual. So at the end of the day, everything we supply is a tool to empower an individual to know if something is real or not. But the decision, the real Schnittstelle, you say in German, the real fuse is in your brain. If you don't want to believe, or you want to believe, there's no amount of technology that's going to solve that issue.
Anthony Sahakian, thank you so much for joining me today. Really excited to have you with me at the Human Zero Day. And, you know, I think we just talked about how you're one of the first people in the world to be looking into deepfakes and deepfake detection before practically they existed in many regards. But we'll get into that in a minute. So I'm excited to dive into this world with you. Thank you for being here with me.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Anthony, how did you get into deepfakes all the way back in 2016? What prompts that?
First of all, let's be clear. Deepfake is a term that was coined in 2017, I think. So this journey started actually where you are in Israel, where a very good friend of mine and my co-founder came to me and said, I want to build a company to detect real from fake in the digital world. At the time, I had spent 10, 15 years in Russia and Central Asia. I've dealt with misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation. I've lived it as a foreigner living in very authoritarian countries. And to me, it was a no-brainer that we would need software to distinguish real from fake in the digital world. And I was an investor. I put money in. The company started in Tel Aviv. It didn't work. They were using signals processing technology. This is 2016. Didn't work, couldn't scale. At the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm a political scientist. I made my money in bricks and mortar businesses in Moscow and Central Asia. But I liked the idea, and I got on a train. I went to EPFL, which is one of our top learning universities. There, I met and got to know the chairman of JPEG. And at the time, he looks at me and Turaj, a friend of mine. He said, yeah, I think there's something here. The way to do it is with a Swiss government grant. Let's apply for a project detecting real from fake, multimodal. But you need to use AI. And this is 2016. I mean, nobody was using AI. So we wrote the project. And in the middle of the project, the whole deepfake thing exploded. And we found ourselves researching an issue. At the time, nobody could predict deepfake. No, anybody who tells you they could have predicted what happened, I think is lying. It's bullshit. But we could see that there would be exponentially better tools. At the time, we were looking at Photoshop to change things. So my partner originally wanted to do this in social media because he has 5 kids and he was very worried about what they were seeing and the influence they were getting. I was sitting in Switzerland and I thought, okay, it's a good idea, but how about we do it B2B? I'm too old to roll the dice on a 1 in 10 chance in success. Let's do a B2B project focusing more on what we thought would be the use case insurance claim management. We're still looking at that. And opportunistically, ID management came to us too. Is it a real passport, fake passport, that kind of stuff. So it's a very big space. It's not going away. And, you know, when they came to me as an angel investor in the very beginning, it was a no-brainer. Yeah, we need this. Now, can we do it? How do we take it to market? That's all secondary. And I went all in, as I usually do in everything I do. I hope that's
And
Is that explanatory enough?
well, absolutely, but there's still a path from being an angel investor to actually being a
I
founder,
took
and
the
then
company over. I took the company over. So we
what does that
couldn't
mean?
do it with the technology. It
Mm.
means that we sent money to Tel Aviv. They couldn't do it with signals processing. So I founded a Swiss company. I took the company over and we decided to do it with an AI approach. This is 2017, very early 2017. 2018, we got a grant from the Swiss government to research and develop these issues. And I think we'd have to check this, but I think deepfake, the term was coined in the middle of 2018, something like that.
Yeah,
So
it was
while we were in the
through
research,
yeah, I believe the term first appeared on a Reddit thread somewhere between
exactly.
2017 and 2018. Obviously,
Yeah,
deep learning
deep
and fake.
learning. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So before we planned the project before this all hit, but we're in the middle of it. So we had the correct vision. Now let's see if we can execute.
Yeah, so you've been at this for a while. So
Hmm.
what are some of your what are some of your intuition back in 17 about 2016, 2017 about deepfake detection? So you're seeing this thing coming, you're identifying opportunities in B2B and
Hmm.
particularly in insurance and identities. How
They
do you go
came
about
to us identity. We didn't think about that. I mean, every day I have people contact us with use cases that we hadn't thought about. And the biggest problem we have, I'm sure you're facing it too, is when we engage with customers, they want everything in the kitchen sink and they want it in real time. They want the results yesterday and they want it for free. So, it's managing expectations is a big part of what we do. I'm sorry I interrupted you, Michael. I apologize. Please go ahead.
No, this is the nature of it. But what are your intuitions back then? So you're taking over. You're going to now run the technology. You're going to use AI
Mm.
in 2017. You get a grant from the Swiss government to use AI to
Mm.
provide good signal processing to distinguish real from fake. How do you go about
Yes.
this?
In what sense?
Well, what are some of your is it I mean, how do you approach this technologically? I guess not necessarily from the neural network architecture, but you mean you're sitting with your team in Switzerland, and what is sort of
Mm.
the mission? Do we do any
Okay.
deepfake detection, video, audio? How do you go about it?
No, 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 no. We wanted to build a model that was agnostic and could be trained up for the use cases. Here, I'm not giving you anything proprietary. I'm sure you know better than I do. The real problem is the data, and the real problem is the focus. Because you could maybe envision something like a large language model architecture that could detect a lot of different use cases, but it won't detect it precisely. And when you're dealing with things like insurance or ID management, they're asking for less than 1% false positive, false negative. These are very difficult nuts to crack. So what we learned is the more focused you are on what you're doing, the better your product. And it's a mistake to try and do everything for everybody because you can't. So we are now focusing on one or two products that we're rolling out, very targeted, and very specific to certain sectors. We made the mistake of going too wide, wanting to do too much. And what you
Mm.
find is you can't do anything properly. None of the clients are happy, so we had to pivot, come back to something a bit more focused. I won't go too much into detail about that. And the real key is the data. And with Europe, you have GDPR, you have data constrictions. It's not easy, but we figured a way to do that. So the real question as a business is, one is where can we bring the most, where can we be the most useful, but also we have to monetize it, and it's not that easy to monetize.
So
As I'm
you
sure you're. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so you've watched the world adapt to this concept of deepfakes over the last 8 years, right? So
Hmm.
2016, the term isn't even being used. I guess 2020 is when you have Obama, right, with Peel and then Deep Tom Cruise. So and only really in the last, I guess, 2 years, you're seeing mainstream conversations about deepfakes. Only at the beginning of this year, you see the first real mainstream significant attack of millions of dollars worth. And probably you and I both know that there have been attacks before, but this was the one that made the biggest headlines. How has the world adapted in your eyes
Okay.
to the deepfake
Okay.
threat. Walk me through the 8-year journey for you.
Here I'm gonna tell you something. Feel free to edit out or deepfake my audio for this. The conclusion I've come to is you do not have a technological, and here I'm gonna be rude, but it's on purpose. There's no technological solution to stupid. People are gonna believe what they want to believe. You can deepfake Donald Duck on Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. And if they want to believe what they say, they're going to believe it. You can put a box around it. You can put warnings on it. It doesn't matter. So the purpose for us is A, to identify the markets where they actually need our tech to help them. B, how to combat the what's the word I'm looking for? The cognitive bias, which is the confirmation bias you have when you go online to see what you want to see. And there's a new branch of cognitive science, I believe it's called cognitive immunity, that people are talking about, where at the end of the day, like in everything cyber, you're a cybersecurity specialist, I'm not, the weakest link is the individual. So at the end of the day, everything we supply is a tool to empower an individual to know if something is real or not. But the decision, the real Schnittstelle, you say in German, the real fuse is in your brain. If you don't want to believe, or you want to believe, that there's no amount of technology that's going to solve that issue. So it's a double-edged sword. One, you want to make the attacks more expensive than the defense. Two, you're never going to have something, or at least very difficult to, that's 100% efficient, doesn't exist. And
Yeah.
three, you got to target it for your market, and you got to build a product around it for them. So then you run into the issue of how do you build something that can scale, that has potential to go to market, and at the same time be efficient and save your customers time, money. And in your case, in Israel, I mean, you have a lot. I mean, I'll give you an example. We were speaking with the governments of Indonesia and Pakistan. You can imagine the damage that a deep-faked, was it Malala Yousafzai? No, it was another young lady who was falsely accused of burning a Quran. She never, Now, if you actually have this on video, they're very concerned about that. Now, what good would it do to tell people half an hour later that it wasn't true, it didn't happen? They're not going to believe it. So it becomes a very difficult nut to crack. We are not focusing on that because I don't think we can solve that issue. That has to be done by local governments. Maybe technology like yours or ours can help them. But that's an education process. You're not going to stop an angry mob from storming something with a targeted deepfake, at least not sitting in Palo Alto.
And so you're making, I think, a very clear distinction between social, society, cognitive biases, the perception of distinguishing truth and your
Mm,
reality from lies and fake, right?
mm,
And then there's the world of business and the world, and you touched on insurance and different
mm.
use cases within, I guess, the business to business perspective of where you really want to defend the human as the weakest link. And it sounds to me like pretty early on you navigated towards the B2B landscape in the context of protecting the human. Am I correct?
Um, how about giving giving a human the tools necessary to protect himself? We're giving an added arrow to his quiver um, to detect things quickly, because now you can't tell. You can have one of these large language models fake something, and there's no way the human eye can tell this. I'll give you one simple example. One of our softwares can detect a use case. We were in the data rooms of our clients. If you do it by hand, and if you have experts, maybe in half an hour they can tell you that it's a fake image. Our software can do it in 3 seconds. So that's the kind of thing we're focusing on, where we streamline a business process, we make it move faster, and we give the client the tools to detect real from fake quickly in a situation where they need a room full of 30, 40, 50 people at least, and they're not even sure of being able to do it. So that's the kind of thing we're focusing on, Michael.
Right. And who are the early adopters of this in your eyes?
That's a very difficult nut to crack. Now, you have to decide as a business where you're going. we have a direction that I'm convinced is the right one after having made a lot of false starts. I'm not going to share that too much in detail, but I would say you would have to come to the US for early adoption of this technology. I'm not sure about the business environment in Israel. We had offices there. I've interacted with Israel, but I can't speak for it. Because as I was telling you on our call earlier, the US has one superpower. You better be doing 1% better than you did yesterday, be it in your personal life or your corporate life. You're judged on next quarter's results. You have an incentive because you have a stock option that's vesting, because your earnings are tied to bonuses in equity that doesn't exist in Europe. So
Mm-hmm.
it's obvious for me. That's why I moved the company and myself here. You got to start in the US, or if not the US, I can't speak for China or Southeast Asia. I don't know it. But the issue we had in Europe too is Europe is the illusion of a single market. We were pitching to big insurance companies, and you're pitching to the same company in Paris, Madrid, Berlin, different politics in each office, different decision makers. Half the time, because it's human nature, they think their nephew can do it, or their cousin can do it, or the people they've been working with for years. So if you're going to start somewhere, you might as well do your POCs in a country that's as big as the US, where if you sign one contract here, it might be more difficult, but at least you get the whole country. And then you
Absolutely.
come to Europe saying, hey, this is what the Americans are doing. We suggest you do it too. The other way around just doesn't make sense. To me, again, I could be proven wrong. We might have to pivot again. But having been studied here and being educated in the US, I'd forgotten what this country is really about. And it's about efficiency. You know,
Right.
you don't have August off. You know, you don't have kids that were paying above market in Paris, machine learning guys. The first question is how many weeks paid vacation do we get, which is fine, but maybe not in a startup early stage. I
It's
can
hard.
give
It's
you a bunch
harder.
of anecdotes on it. Yeah,
Well, Anthony, it sounds like an immense amount of learning under your belt over these last 8 years. But if I'm looking now at the areas in which, so let's look at human security in the context of businesses. And I'm really curious to hear your perspective.
sure.
There are many ways in which humans engage with digital media, digital content, communication, like we're doing now.
Mm.
Here we are in 2024. Where are the areas where do you think businesses should be most concerned about in the context of the cybersecurity
Okay.
warfare on the human mind? Where is the business that
Okay.
CISOs or security professionals should be really concerned with?
Okay. Well, here I have to be a bit careful because I don't want to give away what we're doing exactly. But what we're talking about basically in our space, I think, aside from all of the processes you can automate, I mean, you know about these. There's nothing magical about that. Is the social engineering aspect of deepfake. But the problem you're going to have is, as a subsection of great apes, I think humans, for the most part, are reactive. We have to wait for something to happen in order to take action to, to stop it. One of my biggest questions, I met a guy whose Amazon is going to compete with Starlink soon. They're putting up satellites fast. They're buying land. So I met one of the heads of the project and I asked him, so, not that I know anything about this subject, but the top of my head is, so what are you doing to ensure that your satellites are rugged? What do you mean? I said, well, I think it was the Carrington event, 1849, 1859, solar flare, wiped out most of the telephone or telegraph cables around the world at that time. We're overdue. What happens if a solar flare hits your satellites? Are you ready for that? And the guy had no answer, so he hadn't even thought of that. So it's very difficult to sell something to people before the problem it's coming, is a real one. I will add to that I'm aware, because some of our clients have spoken to us about deepfake, social engineered spear phishing attacks that have hit CEOs. They've lost tens of millions in this, but you're not going to hear about it. No company is going to come up and say, yeah, we sent a fake CEO 30 million last week. It was a deepfake call. It's happening, and it's going to happen more and more. So we're thinking about products to defend people about that. Against these type of attacks. We're thinking about how to do it. We have our thoughts, and that's what we're focusing on. We want to be able to produce a tool that will help people resist spear phishing attacks. So we have a strategy. That's what we're focusing on right.
Do you think that, and again, it's not necessarily, not to give away any of the things that you're specifically doing. I obviously understand the sensitivity behind it, but in from the insights you've gathered, do you think that the right approach is more so in helping teach humans to be better listeners and better skeptics of reality, or is it more so in let's provide more anti-phishing automated detection solutions, because those are neither of those have been usually successful in the context of social engineering, right? Email security has some great successes. Awareness and training has historically been primarily for compliance purposes. So how do you see businesses actually protecting people from social engineering and spear phishing, because they're getting really good?
That's a very good question. Obviously, education is at the core of all of this, but you can't educate everybody all the time. The risk you have if you step in with software is to be accused of bias one way or the other. It's a serious risk. Whatever you're doing, whether you're on the right or the left or the middle, it doesn't matter. Any human engineered tool will have some bias if it's even just unconscious in it. Um, I think at the bottom line, it's to interact with your customers, to teach them to be skeptical about everything, and to give them a tool that they can click on or that works automatically in the background to help them with this if there's even a shadow of doubt about something. We're working on that right now. How we're doing it, that I will keep under wraps for them. What are you guys doing, Michael? What's your point? What's your thought
Well, we're
on this?
looking at how businesses are experiencing the pain. So we've been really looking at, the way that deepfakes are impacting societal issues, from news to
Mhm.
legal and forensics, and I'm really proud of the work we've done in forensically analyzing the deepfakes and being able to reliably determine whether an identity is synthetically generated or lip synced or face swapped.
Yeah.
And I've been growing more and more curious about the way that enterprises are experiencing these pain points, because I think, as you said, it's a curious problem when you have to experience the problem as a mainstream issue before you proactively take measures against it. It becomes an even bigger issue when you don't necessarily share when you're experiencing the problem. And so it's almost like every business would potentially have to experience it on their own before they proactively look for solutions, right?
And I will add to that, if you're the employee at the company that's victim of it, you probably, if you can get away with not reporting it, you will, because it's not in your interest. You'll probably lose your job. So um, that's something I think we figured out a way to fix. And I won't share that on this podcast, but I'm working towards something now
Well, I'm
for that.
Anthony. I'm wishing you best of luck with what sounds to be like a solution that you thought long and hard about, especially since you've been at this for 8 years. So I really do hope that
Absolutely.
you succeed with it.
Absolutely.
Um, I'm curious to hear your perspective on
Sure.
the future of the space.
Well, there's a thought out there. I read a book. I think it was called Convergence. That everything is converging. Now, if you add an exponential curve of technological growth, which is coming now, will it have what do you call it? Will it be a hockey stick curve, or will it be like this? We don't know. Quantum computing is coming. It might be in 50 years. It might be tomorrow. We don't know yet. We have to look at a period of exponential growth where I think just defining what is real and what is virtual is going to be very difficult in 20 years. I mean, you have all of these VR, AR, it's coming. Will we integrate with technology? Will we all have a Neuralink embedded or something similar to it in 20 years? What's the world going to look like? I can't answer that. The same way, at the time we were looking at this, we were looking at tools like Photoshop, who would make image and video manipulation child's play. We never imagined in 2016 that you would have DALI or any of these things out there where you could just talk to
Yeah.
the damn thing. I mean, this was. So what's coming? I would be a fool to say I know. But I know something is coming, and this is a space we have to be in, unless we decide to merge with machines and merge with the virtual space and live a matrix life or, neuromancer type future. That might be what's there. I hope not. I haven't enjoyed walking around Silicon Valley and see kids have more intimate relationships with their smartphones than with other people. I don't think that's good. I think arguably our first encounter as a species, and this isn't me, this is something I read somewhere, is with the AI algorithms on social media. And how did that work out for us? So it's going to be a challenging time. Now, the trick for a company like yours and mine is how to develop technology that we think is for the good of humanity and keep it monetizable at the same time. Because, as you said, it's not that easy to convince people that it's necessary or it's needed until it's too late. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, Michael. Sorry.
Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time
My pleasure, sir.
to share this with me. Honored having one of the very,
Oh,
very pioneers of deepfake detection
right. We
and
fell into it backwards by accident. This was pure, pure luck. Right time, right
beautiful.
place. But yeah,
Wishing you best of luck with Q
absolutely.
integrity.
Yeah.
Excited to see the
You
solutions that
let
you
me
come
know
up
when
with.
you're in Palo Alto, Michael. Huh? Please. I'm in Palo Alto
Absolutely.
myself. When you're here, let me know. We'll have lunch or dinner or
Would
something.
love
It'll be a
that.
pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much.